a community that I found really struck me, and I couldn't really understand why at first, was Lajamanu. I found the people's willingness to try and adhere to the mainstream criminal justice system quite incredible, given the history of how it was imposed. And I also found that it was, from my limited experience there, a peaceful community. It seemed to have very strong older people that were running the show behind the scenes, and the younger people had a great deal of respect for that. And the more I talked, the more I realised that the law that was the most respected in Lajamanu, being this peaceful community, was Yapa law, which is Aboriginal law. And I thought, well, something's very wrong here if the system that they must operate in, and the system that is the only system that is acknowledged in Australian law, is the mainstream criminal justice system, and yet from young to old in Lajamanu, their law is Aboriginal law. Clearly, there's one of the keys as to why the mainstream criminal justice system isn't working. And so I talked more each time I went back to Lajamanu, and then I made an educational film because I thought that might assist some people from all over the place with understanding the Australian mainstream criminal justice system if I was to make a film that asked the questions of all the different players in the court as to what their roles were. And when I was making that educational film, which I thought, look, it may or may not assist, but I'm going to do something here that could potentially assist with people's understanding of the mainstream system, was encounter a request from the Lajamanu community, the people that I was working on the educational film with, to make another film. And that other film was the film that I've just finished making, called Bush Law. And that film is the film that the people really wanted to make. It's their story, their perspective on how they think crime can be addressed effectively. In a nutshell, Bush Law is about telling the truth from the people in the system in Lajamanu from a bird's eye view. The people that are telling the story are telling their story. They're telling the actual experience, living it. Living in an Aboriginal community where there is a whole nother set of rules and laws and a culture operating. And there is also an imposed culture and set of rules operating as well. So this is the story of a community learning to walk in both worlds.
Can I ask you if you as a lawyer were convinced that it was possible to have two legal systems so different, or so apparently different, operating side by side?
I am convinced that there is a possibility for these legal systems to work together, but I am also convinced, if that possibility is to become a reality, that we white fellas need to start taking Aboriginal people seriously, their legal systems seriously, not giving them some token offering of acknowledging their legal system that we completely control, but actually giving people an empowered responsibility in the legal process. From my experience in the last 3 years working on this film, what I've discovered, and what I can quite embarrassingly say, is that through all my legal degree and through all my legal practice, I didn't understand this, and that is that Aboriginal law is alive and very strong in some places in the Northern Territory. And I can only speak from my perspective and the communities that I've worked in the Northern Territory, but it is very much operational and it is very much real. And it is a very complex system, and it has rules and regulations for not only crime and punishment, but people's whole lives. So until that's acknowledged and until that's respected, and until we white fellas give Aboriginal people a voice to explain that to us, with us actually openly listening and respecting and acknowledging that, nothing's going to change. Why would you respect a system that was imposed on you without consultation and that you don't really understand when you have your own system? And another thing that I have learnt through working on this film, and it's only my perspective on this, but I think our legal systems aren't actually as different as people think they are. People are drawn to controversy, and so they look for differences and they highlight those differences rather than working from where I think is a better place to start, and that's the similarities. And there are similarities, there are very strong similarities between our systems. We are all human beings and we all want the same things. The people that I worked with on the film, they don't want crime in their community, they don't want violence in their community. They want peace, harmony and a strongly functioning, well-functioning community. And it's their perspective that the two systems working together and the formal recognition of Aboriginal law as well as mainstream law, and Aboriginal law working into that mainstream system, that is the only way that that can actually happen.